Welcome, everybody. Once again, this is brought to you by the Queen's Chamber of Commerce Technology Committee, and welcome to virtual meetings, top 10 ways to Zoom like a pro, or as our announcer would say.
Welcome to virtual meetings, the top 10 ways to Zoom like a pro.
Good afternoon, as the fairies release their music. I'm Jeff Schick. I will be one of the panelists. I am president of Sprite Media. We help small businesses with websites, web services like SEO and social media. We also make digital signage. And joining us, we have two sides of the coin. Gary Anzalone is from the business side and Henry is from the technology side. So we're going to get two different views of it. So we'll start off with Gary. Tell us a little bit about Razor Consulting.
Good afternoon, everyone. Razor Consulting is an outsourced business development company. We help our clients open up doors and strategically focus on how they can increase their revenue and good client connections.
And Henry is president of Deadline Video. Tell us a little bit about Deadline.
Hey guys, so basically we specialize in all things live streaming, whether it be Facebook Live, YouTube, or any event that you have. We do multi-camera productions on location and also virtual stuff similar to Zoom.
All right, folks, here we go. We just want to mention we're going to be following the suggestions of the Creative Commons, which is we're going to note who made the videos that you'll be seeing and give them proper credit for providing us with some entertainment today. And let's talk about virtual meetings. And here they come. Let's hark back to the good old days of 2019, where majority of people had no idea what virtual meetings were. And now just about everybody knows what Zoom is. What we're going to talk about today pretty much fits any type of virtual meeting, not necessarily Zoom. I just said Zoom because that's the most common one and people know that the most. So I want to ask you guys, I guess I'll start with Gary. Which ones are you familiar with and which ones you'd like to use?
I'm primarily familiar with Zoom. I've been on the Google and Microsoft and FaceTime, but Zoom is far away the leader as far as people using it the most in my circles.
And Henry, how about you?
Yeah, definitely Zoom. It's hard. I mean, you can't beat their market share. They just blew everybody away once COVID started. Whether it be Teams or Skype or WebEx, some folks started with that, I saw, and then ended up migrating to Zoom because people found it easier to use.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think that's why Zoom is so popular, especially with schools, is it's just super easy. So let's get ready to do our countdown, our top 10, and here we go.
Number 10, environment.
Scandals happen all the time. The question is, how do democracies respond to those scandals?
And what will it mean for the wider region? I think one of your children has just walked in. I mean, shifting sands in the region. Do you think relations with the North may change?
I would be surprised if they do. Pardon me. My apologies.
This one doesn't get old.
I agree with this.
My apologies.
He's trying to stay on point.
South Korea's policy choices on North Korea have been severely limited in the last 6 months to a year.
Okay, environment. This is pretty important. And the poor fellow on the BBC interview. Can you imagine trying to keep your train of thought while your kids are barging into the room, and there we say dogs, parrots, any kind of critters. So a couple of recommendations here is lock the door, close the window, and one of the phrases that always gets me, 2 words, leaf blower. Gary, what do you think about environment?
Well, I think that unlike an in-person meeting, you're framed and hyper-focused on your face or whatever is on camera. So you have to be really careful of controlling that unless you're in a casual setting. But if you're in a business setting, having a pet or having someone knock on the door, having someone call, like it's happened to me where someone's called my name and I don't answer because I'm not wanting to disturb the call. So they have to understand that if you don't answer once, you're not able to. So you're not able to interrupt a call. So I think being hyper-focused and keeping the door locked and control that environment so that it's only what you want to be on there without any surprises.
Henry?
Yeah, same. Going back to my news days, whenever the eye and the ear compete, the eye always wins. So if you've got a pet behind you, if you've got a TV behind you, or your little kid happens to get through the door like that, nobody's going to hear what you're saying. So if you want to get your message across, follow these rules.
Well, one thing is if you have a cat, the cat will know where your keyboard is and will call that home during your meeting. I don't know how they know you're doing a meeting, but they do. One note I have on here is live room versus dead room. If you've been watching the news or people do webinars, they tend to do them in their kitchen sometimes, or, an environment. This may be all they have, but you'd figure like a weatherman or somebody doing the traffic would have some other place. A live room means that your voice is bouncing off the walls, and you'll notice this more. You have reverberation from the walls, the tables, whatever. A good tip is to have a blanket rolled up behind your computer to deaden the sound, or anything to deaden the sound. Some people will will sit in front of a closet to deaden the sound. But it can be really annoying with reverberating sounds. Okay, and on that note.
Number 9, connection.
Hey, buddy.
What's going on, man?
Okay, we got this.
I'm sorry. I'm talking at the same time as you.
Okay.
You go ahead and
ahead.
talk. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's all right.
Are you talking right now?
Yeah,
Are you
I'm trying to.
Go ahead.
All right, this is.
Go ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
Wait.
What's that?
What? Wait. What?
You gotta be kidding me.
Not today.
Ridiculous.
Gotta have this conversation.
Okay.
God,
There's only one thing we can do, okay? There's only one thing we can do.
No, listen to me.
Yeah.
I don't know how to get out of
Well,
this.
then we gotta end it. I gotta end it. I can't do it anymore.
I can't do it anymore.
Okay, fine.
I can't do it anymore.
Then we're gonna end it. Okay, we're gonna end.
I can't do it.
Keegan, I'm gonna end it. You're frozen. I can't tell. We're gonna end it, okay? I just don't want you to be offended. Ending it. And he really meant end it.
Yeah, we're hoping your connection does not lead to that. Okay, we're gonna throw it to Henry about connection. I know he's got some things.
Well, this is my number one on the whole list is connection, because if people, if you can't get a connection, if you're freezing, if your audio or your video's dropping out, people are gonna just leave as soon as possible. So the first thing you always want to do is get a hardwire. Hardwire Ethernet is your friend.
Yes. So if you can plug into right from your router to your computer, that's really important. There's a lot, without getting too technical, there's a lot more signal you're going to get through a cable than you're going to get through Wi-Fi. Plus, if you have neighbors, which I think just about everybody does, or you're in an apartment building, you have to be challenging other people's Wi-Fi. Now, most laptops may have an Ethernet connection and some don't. Henry, what do you recommend in that case?
Well, yeah, some of the newer laptops have eliminated the Ethernet jack. So simply USB to Ethernet adapter. This one I think is from Anchor. Anker. We'll show you links to some equipment later, but yeah, just get one of these and plug in. Something we had mentioned earlier was that, we're in the #1 market in the city. There's Wi-Fi all over the place. Why take a chance, especially if your meeting is important and if you need to make a good impression? Just plug in. You can get a 20-foot cable for less than like $10 right now.
How much is that adapter?
The adapter was less than 20. I've had that for a while.
Keep in mind, none of us are getting any money to promote things. We're just trying to figure out what is the best way for our guests to get the best Zoom across. How about you, Gary?
I have a MacBook Air, and it's just pretty much out of the box standard. The camera that came with it, the speakers, and I am using Wi-Fi.
So I am actually on a MacBook Air as well, and I have a connection and I'm on one of the newer ones, which only has 2 USB-Cs on it, but I have a breakout connector which breaks out to an Ethernet and a USB-A and a HDMI. So it's got a bunch of stuff, and I think that thing only cost me like $20 or $30 to do, but it's very valuable. As Henry said, if you don't have a good connection, all bets are off. I do some work with a client, and they were doing an interview with a famous musician, and they couldn't use it because the musician site just kept on cutting out. Also, if you guys are stuck with Wi-Fi, some channels are better than others where you would go in and change the channel. We're not going to go into that right now, but that's something you can look into to make your life a little bit better, especially if you're in an apartment building or you have neighbors. I'm in obviously Queens, and my neighbors, I could see out the window and see in theirs, but I'm not going to do that right now.
Yeah, I mean, Jeff, we talked about that before too.
Number 8, timing.
I got to get my timing right.
What day is it? Oh, it's Wednesday. I think.
All right, timing, Gary.
Well, I have the same rule for a Zoom call as I do for in-person meetings, and keeping the time schedule, which means start on time, end on time, because other people have busy schedules, and there's no way to show more respect for someone's schedule than to start on time and end on time. If you run over, I've been at board meetings that ran hours over, and it just shows a disrespect for keeping priority and keeping people on target. So I take what I know from in-person meetings, and I bring them also to Zoom.
Henry?
Yeah, the same. Basically, if you say you're going to start at one time, maybe it just tells the culture of your work ethic, if you're lax with that.
Right. Like if you have let's say you have a meeting like today and it's supposed to start at 3, and you're like, well, we'll wait for, somebody to join, and it's 15 minutes in, your business will have the culture of, well, I'm not going to get on time, because they never start on time. You start on time, you train the folks to know that that's their time. If they miss it, they miss it, and they'll learn to be there on time. What I do on every call, even if it's a one-on-one call, is I have a clock right in front of me. I have that right now, to be very aware, because folks have meetings, on the top of the hour like this one. We're going to try to finish as close to 4 o'clock as we can, because we know folks have something to do. We're not going to run, stray all over. And that'll lead us to number 7.
Number 7, Zoom bombing.
Who is Jonathan Cantory? Show me yourself or you're out.
I'm Jonathan Cantory, and I'm hacking your Zoom. This is the Russian hackers. We have infiltrated your computer. You must press Alt F4.
Get out, please.
You'll get out. This is my Zoom now.
I'm stopping the Zoom.
I'm stopping you. You're done. Miss Mackey, Miss Mackey, Miss Mackey, Miss Mackey. Is the answer 6 when the 4 is titrated to the chlorine?
She's terrified.
Miss Mackey, no! Hi there, Mr. I'm with Zoom technical support. We've noticed that we've been getting some DDoS attacks on certain streams and certain Zoom meetings. And we believe this one, they've got like your Minecraft password, your Roblox password. So we might need this meeting to restart.
I don't actually have Minecraft or any of that.
Oh, well, they've got it. They made an account under your name. They're currently on Minecraft servers impersonating you, from what the IT department has told me. So we might need a full restart of this Zoom meeting just to be safe.
Okay, and you're not going to join it after I restart it? Right?
No, absolutely not.
So I need everybody to log off. I'm going to end the meeting, and then we're going to start again.
Okay, thank you so much for your participation. Why would you believe that me, wearing a champion hoodie with TikTok LED lights in the background, would be a Zoom? So good.
I am thankful for Ben of the Week there, because it was really hard to find anything that wasn't vulgar concerning Zoom bombing. And also teenagers have way too much time on their hands sometimes. So Zoom made it really easy to get in the rooms. So that made it very good for business and very bad for people who want to join in and cause havoc. So I think I'm going to go to Henry first on this one.
Well, Zoom has actually added a lot more features since they started to help combat bombing, especially after the Times put out an article last year just about Zoom bombing. So they've instituted features like you cannot create a meeting without a password or without a waiting room, that kind of thing. But yeah, that was pretty tame. Unfortunately, I haven't experienced it personally, but people have gotten on there and played racist material, pornographic material, and really, some nasty stuff.
Gary Bat, how about you? You know anyone who's been Zoom bombed?
No, I haven't. We always use a waiting room. I don't use the password because it's like an extra step for people to join the call, and it always seems to trip a lot of people up, at least for me. So we always have a waiting room. We know who's coming in. We don't really have surprises, but I can see where it's very important to have some kind of protocol to prevent that, and have that button ready to kick them out as soon as they show their cards.
Yeah,
Right.
one other thing I'll say, Jeff, is that you can report people to Zoom. I believe, though, if you're going to do that, you need to click the menu that says report this person before you boot them.
Right, that's, they might just...
The other thing you can do is you can lock the meeting. If everybody that's supposed to be there is there, you can actually lock it. It's one of the menu choices in there, and nobody else can get in.
So this is pretty wild. So I know I'm in an engineering group, and someone crashed one of the other cities in the country, crashed their meeting and put up all sorts of pornography and racist stuff. The thing is, it freaks people out. So you have to be ready to ditch that person, look at the guest list. And Gary, you mentioned it before, the waiting room is a real good thing. So you can you let each person enter, one at a time, or see their names. And it's important, if you're a guest, not to put something, put your screen name as terrorist. That would probably be a bad thing.
Yeah, definitely. Like if you noticed in the clip, that kid called himself Jennifer something.
Yeah,
which is probably whoever he got the invite. So when you allow them when they are in the waiting room, you don't see their video. But yeah, that's just one of the extra steps to take. And one quick suggestion for passwords is you can change the password from a number to like a phrase. Like let's say we had a meeting today and I said the password is chamber. That's makes it a little easier for folks.
Yeah. Because you always get the people, what's the password? What's the, and then they start. My favorite is when you're already in the meeting, the phone rings. What's the password? Or they start texting you. All right, let's keep it going here.
Number 6, video.
Profession is one of the only professions that say that we can never get involved with a former client ever, regardless of how long it's been, versus like some other professions,
Where's she going?
years or whatever. I think it really depends on just like the ethical standards of the profession. And in reality, I've heard that social work kind of has very high standards and like good
I'm glad the screen is
standards in
blurry.
terms of things, and that oftentimes people don't, like people of other professions don't have. Yeah.
Hold on.
What happened?
I saw nothing. Oh my God.
Poor Jennifer.
I gotta.
Poor Jennifer.
What happened?
Nothing. Keep going.
This will be forever known as Poor Jennifer, and unfortunately it's famous out there. So this poor lady forgot to turn her camera off, which is a really good thing to note, where your video plus your audio on and off buttons are. Probably one of the first things you should learn once you get on the screen. All right, we're going to talk internal, external cameras with Henry first.
Yeah, so I prefer external just because most laptop cameras are not that great. You could even get, a webcam for less than $100. Logitech is a very good brand that I've recommended to folks. And I prefer that, just having the extra control. You can position it better. And but some internal cameras that have been really good have been iPads, some of the newer Macs, and actually Microsoft Surface. I've liked their cameras a lot.
Yeah, I've heard that. How about you, Gary? How you feel about cameras?
Well, I think you're on that list of bulleted things, that knowing where the video on off is probably the most important of those, because if you looked at that video, there was someone that was on that was driving. There is circumstances where you shouldn't be on camera at all. I think that's coming up even more later.
Yes, it is.
But the thing is, you are framed. So everything that you're doing, unless you're controlling that environment, you should be maybe just on the mic and not on the camera, unless you are 100% sure of what's going on. I have a very controlled background, as does Henry, and that's for a point. Where we want to make sure that you're getting us talking, and that's the focus, not something else.
One tip that I added on this, and I don't think I've ever heard any webinar talk about in this realm, is to clean the lens. So we know that just about everybody out there is taking selfies and videos and pictures from their mobile phones. And the good thing is the quality of the phones are really good. But when they're sitting in your pocket, they do collect dust. And also on your laptop, if you have a camera on there, just where's my props here? Here's my prop, my little cleaning rag there. And it's not a big deal, but just, today, folks on this call, take a look at your camera lens, take a look at your lens on your laptop. And if you see a little dust, just wipe that off. It's just so amazing how many people just don't think about something like that.
Yeah, Jeff, I'll chime in because, on the laptops, camera is built right into the lid. And what do you do when you open your laptop? You raise the lid. So how many people might be smudging their camera up? And just, you know what, one of the cloths you have is perfect, just the same ones that you use to clean your glasses.
Right. It's pretty easy to do.
And lastly, I guess I would also say that just keep your hand on that button in case you need to. If you have to drink or eat or sneeze or cough, be ready to mute or stop the video. And it's that simple. You can have a picture, you can have your name, you can have your logo, but it should be readily available. You should be mindful of what's going on. That's it.
Yeah, I've been on too many calls where somebody's like, petting their dog, hey, here, Poochie, here, Poochie. And it's like, it's very distracting. I'm going to call with 30 people and somebody's doing something, and all of a sudden your attention runs to that person. So we're bringing up here, this was a Queen's Chamber Zoom call, and we're not bringing this up to pick on anyone or make fun of anybody. This is for education, to point out how the folks on this webinar can learn a little bit more of how to do this better. And the first one we see here is way too much headroom. And another pet peeve that I have, this is big for me, is the portrait mode. So if you by chance are doing this on a phone, good, bad, good, bad. Just remember that, because you've lost 2/3 of your picture just by doing that. But folks do that quite a bit. And also, there's we can run up a whole list of things: the up the nose shots, the top of the head shot.
Yeah, one thing I'll say, Jeff, is that one of the most common problems that you still see is people with windows behind them. And look at the folks in here. You can't. They're silhouettes because they've got a bright window. The camera iris is down, so because of the window, and you can't see anybody. So pull any shades, move the spot, put something darker behind you. Generally, photography-wise, the person's face should be the brightest thing in the frame.
Right. All right.
Number 5, attire.
He's comfy.
Try to get to Paul in just a little bit.
I wonder if he was home or if he was in the office with that one. Obviously, he was not wearing pants. I'm not going to ask if my co-panelists are wearing pants at this point. I will just note that I am. Gary, stay there.
Thanks, Gary.
So I'm going to let Gary lead this one off. This is definitely a business thing.
I would, again, take a page out of what a real meeting, a face-to-face meeting is. You're projecting you're making a statement about who you are professionally. So if you want to be in a t-shirt, or you want to be, even if you're just worried about from the waist up or what's on camera, it should be fully, I've seen people way too casual because they're not in the office. You might have worn a suit or a suit without a tie and been dressed, but you feel like because you're home, you don't have to do that. And I've seen people wear everything from a tux to, a suit and tie and full regalia, but the majority do not. So I think if you are fully buttoned up, you feel better, and it's more of a confidence thing. You're not going to, if the angle of the camera drops and something happens, you don't want to have anything that's a mishap. So I say go all in if it's important. And if it's a social, it's casual, then it doesn't matter. But when it matters, be all on, 100%.
Henry?
Yeah, same. Basically, my attitude is for safety. You don't want to end up on a YouTube clip because you happen to pull your laptop down and point at, no pants on. Or, or you're on an external camera, you've got your little webcam clipped up here, and it ends up falling and, showing what else you're wearing. Just like Gary said, if it's important, it's worth it's worth being careful. And that, and the fact, and I generally, for all my meetings, dress like if I'm going to be there, because it puts you in a better state of mind too.
Yeah, I think there's two kinds of meetings. If your meeting that you have doesn't require you to hold a wine glass or a beer stein, that's a different meeting. That's a business meeting. And one of the things that I never understand is when you see on TV, when you have the weatherman or the traffic person who's home because of COVID, they dress down. They might be wearing a sweatsuit or a sweater. Meanwhile in the studio, they're wearing a suit or a dress or whatever. I don't understand, if you're doing the news, why you would dress down. And same with the meeting. You got to remember, this is a meeting, and this is the future. There's going to be a lot more meetings on Zoom than there will be in person. So treat it like that. Treat it professionally. People who aren't used to working at home, could be in their pajamas doing this, but we do not recommend that. You're still working. This is still a meeting. This is still important.
Number 4, audio.
Many of the points, I hope he agrees in that letter, were answered in my statement about support for curfew, non-essential retail, gyms, personal.
Have you pressed the button, Prime Minister? Prime Minister. Right. I think we're just going to have to stop for a moment so we can have it checked. Have you pressed the button by mistake? Muted. It's not our Prime Minister, it could well be yours. I wonder if Mr. Hancock would like to take over with the answer. Is one of you going to do it or not? So he's looking at each other. Sorry. We're going to suspend for 3 minutes then. Okay.
Okay, so even Boris Johnson is not immune from the typical problems us commoners have. As we were saying, know where the video on and off is, know where the audio on and off is. How often do we run into that fateful call where you say, "You're muted"? Unmute. I'll let Gary start off on this one.
Well, from the business side, not from the technology side, that's Henry's realm, is I will say that a lot of people have background noise that they're not aware of, that when you're on the other end of that, it sounds way more amplified. So if there is, like you talked about the leaf blower, if you can have windows closed, if you can have everyone in the place where you are quiet, you can close a door, be in an office. You don't want that uncontrolled noise. If there's a dog barking in the background, if there's whatever the distraction is, keep your hand on that mute button and be ready to stop it. And if you can control it, that's the optimal thing, that you don't have this distracting noise in the back. And a lot of times these calls, Zoom calls, we've had to ask everyone to stay muted unless they're speaking, because there is a lot of background noise and it's trying to figure out who's that person that's doing that.
Yeah, I usually set up most calls where there's more than one person, that it's automatically set in Zoom that the people who entered are muted, but not everybody remembers to do that. And then you have the folks that come on and don't realize they're muted and start doing this, which I believe one of the nominees for the Academy Award was muted when he was giving his speech during the nominations. Henry, what do you think about internal versus external microphones?
Well, I always prefer external. Some of the newer equipment, does a really good job, whether it's, Mac Pro or the Surface is not bad either. With their internal stuff, if you're in a quiet room and if you're close, if you're further away, if there's other noise going on, external stuff is just so much better. Especially with this Zoom does some echo cancellation to try and compensate for any noise in your room. So then external will also help you from like your voice getting clipped or anything like that. I've got an external mic. I've actually got an earpiece that I'm using just to, hear everything click to, so that make sure my audio is good. And this honestly is number 2 on the list for me. Number 2, after connection, audio is the most important. If people can't hear you well, I mean, how many times have you been on a Zoom call and somebody's speaking really low, and then you get annoyed because the volume, somebody's really loud, somebody's really low. Try to just test your audio before the call with somebody, especially if it's important, like a pitch to a big client.
So feedback is the squeal you get when the microphone and the speaker are on at the same time, and the computer works to eliminate that. And most of the time, it's pretty good. We in the business, there's things known as mix minus, but we're not dealing with that kind of level here. But they do a really good job on any of these virtual meetings of not getting your speaker to go back into the microphone. But there is circumstances. Let's say you had a headphone and you put it down and your microphone's here, you'll start hearing squealing. What do you think about the headsets with the wraparound microphones?
It depends on your look, really. If you don't mind having a headset, I've got a headset here if I ever need it for some reason, especially when stuff was really hard to, really in demand when COVID hit. People were using gamer headsets. That'll work as well. Whatever. It depends really a little bit on your hardware. If you have a laptop, if you have a computer with separate earphone and, mic ports, somebody could just drop us a note if they want to know in their specific instance. our contact info will be in there, so you could just hit me up and make some suggestions for you.
We're gonna have all our contact information at the end. Yeah, I feel a little weird sometimes when I'm on a call and somebody's got this headset on. You figure that they almost look like they're flying a jet fighter versus going to a meeting talking about facts and figures.
Yeah, but those guys usually sound some of the best.
You're absolutely right. And there's some pretty inexpensive headsets that sound good. I know both Gary and I right now are on MacBooks, and one of the reasons why they cost a little bit more is because the cameras and the microphones and the speakers are a little higher grade than I know the Microsoft. A lot of the Windows computers, the preamps aren't great for the microphone, so they'll be a little noisier.
Yeah, just one more thing. There's a bunch of variations in microphones too, whatever you like. I happen to actually have this microphone here, which is just an external, because I've got video gear, but there's other stuff you can get. There's clip-on mics that you can clip to your lapel, and there's even, some of these headsets that'll go hang on your ear and get the mic right close to your mouth. Those are really good if you're in a noisy environment. And there's stuff that you can't avoid. Those will help a lot.
So the one I have here, I believe this was under $20, and this was made for the iPhone or one of the other phones. You plug this in with the computer. It's got the microphone built in, even though it's kind of made to take phone calls on your phone. This will work just fine for the Zoom call. And yet again, it's under $20.
Yep, just the earbuds too. Just the regular earbuds. They don't have to be old Apple earbuds like these, but some people are using the AirPods, the Bluetooth AirPods, which is great. I'm not crazy about the audio. They sound a little muffled like that, just from the way they work. But that's another option too.
Here's a tip that I think is kind of important now that folks use these virtual meetings a lot more these days, is if you're on a call early, which we always recommend getting on your calls early, or if you're on a call with a friend, or even just call a friend, just ask, how do I look? How do I sound? My wife had an instance where there's something not quite right with her work laptop, and there was a tremendous echo, and she had no idea. But people on the calls were like, I can't talk to you. So she had to get on a dial-up phone line with the computer graphics, with the PowerPoint on the computer, just to talk with these people. And she's like, can you test this out? And I went on, and it was horrible. It was like a second later, I was hearing myself. It was like nails down a chalkboard. All right.
Number 3, lighting.
We're going back to our picture of the Queen's Chamber of Commerce Zoom once again, so they don't get myself in trouble. We're not doing this to pick on anybody. We're doing this as an educational thing, that we're helping folks learn about lighting. So the first one here, this is a very weird pattern on this person's head. What do you think's going on here, Henry?
Yeah, that was just sunlight coming through the shade that time of day, coming through a break in the shades and just hitting her right in the face. It's really unfortunate, but that's just the stuff you got to kind of pay attention to. And this actually was from an early meeting, like early last year. So I'm sure a lot of these folks do a lot better now.
Yeah, and look at all the pictures here. Look at how many you got blinds and windows nearby. All right, we're gonna look at this one over here where you can't even see the person's face because they're completely washed out. I'm gonna show you my little tip here, because we're all about tips, inexpensive and making it look good. Is I've got a Target desk lamp that is probably about $20, and this is how it normally is on my desk, and it looks like the aurora borealis around my face, which is not a good look, but this is how I operate every day. But when I take a Zoom call, I just point it at myself, and I do have a piece of wax paper to diffuse it, and it does the job. It's not like I'm going to have a whole lighting scheme there. Gary, what do you do for your lighting?
I have to say, for the first 6 months or so, I was unhappy with the lighting. I felt like it wasn't natural. It was too bright. It was. I felt like the camera couldn't capture the skin tone, and it wasn't until I bought one of these for about $20. It seems like that's the operating money. For about $20, I bought a circle light, and it has different intensities. It has different, like a warm, a cool, and a natural light. And it actually came with a tripod, so it's in one package. You just can't beat what it is. It was a very good investment, especially for Zoom, because I could not get the lighting in the room, the overhead lighting, or even putting subsequent lighting in. Just couldn't make it work. So a small investment, I think, again, here is lighting.
And Henry, what do you think?
Yeah, lighting can go a long way toward making your mediocre webcam look really good. And just like you said, it could be, I've had folks put a lamp out of the camera shot on their desk and take the shade off, and it's looked a lot better than if anything else. Ring lights, like Gary said, are great. Can't really show it to you right now, but if you look at my screen, I've actually got an LED up there hitting me, so that I'm lit decently well and separated from my background. But again, going back to that, one of my golden rules is that the speaker's face should be the predominantly bright thing in the frame.
Right, and shades down. Keep those shades down.
No weird shadows like that.
No
Poor
weird,
girl. Yeah.
yes.
Number 2, technology.
I'm prepared to go forward with it. I'm here live. I'm not a cat.
I can see that. I think if you click the up arrow next to this, Mr. Ponton, I believe you have a filter turned on in the video settings. You might want to
We're trying to. Can you hear me, Judge?
I can hear you. I think it's a filter.
It is, and I don't know how to remove it. I've got my assistant here. She's trying to, but I'm prepared to go forward with it.
Yeah. All right. One public service announcement. I would not recommend hiring a cat as your lawyer. They're good at, some things, but not lawyering. They do not know the law. All right, Henry, this is your world.
Well, technology is like, if you're sharing a device, like unfortunately this guy might have been sharing a device with his kid or somebody else that was playing with filters and he didn't know how to take it off, be careful. And test.
Right.
Doesn't matter whatever you're doing.
When you're going to see the judge, you should be ready to go. 15 minutes is a good rule to try things out. And I've seen more often than not where something is Gary, you got some COVID going around there?
I think that filters have a place, but it's not in a business meeting. Not in a business setting.
Are two types of meetings. If you're holding a beverage like wine or beer, well, first of all, you shouldn't be in a business meeting unless you work for a wine and beer distributor, then that's okay. But if you have a beverage, go to town with your filters, with your backgrounds, be on the beach, whatever.
I'm not a fan of virtual backgrounds myself, but some people want to brand their calls or they have to hide whatever's behind them. But
right, and if you can make it plain, that's pretty helpful. Another thing too is learn PowerPoint. I can't count how many times I've been in meetings in person or on a webinar where the person can't share the screen or they don't know how to share the screen. And back when we were meeting in person, people were always saying, "Where's the tech person? I need a adapter or a connector or something like that."
Yeah, I mean, this kind of goes not just PowerPoint, but this kind of goes along with me for Zoom too, because just like any in-person meeting, you want the presenter focusing on your message. You don't want him to have to figure out how to share his screen or why isn't this working or something like that. If it's that important, get help. Get somebody to operate the technology for you so you or the presenter can focus on their presentation. especially if you're let's say, hey, I landed this virtual meeting with this client I've been trying to get for months, and now I'm worrying about why my audio isn't great or why my screen isn't sharing right or something like that. Get a co-host. Zoom allows you to have somebody co-operate the meeting with you. Just do it and practice. And like I said before, test, just practice.
So, Gary, I know you have some thoughts on PowerPoints.
Well, the first thing I would say is if you're going to have a meeting and it has any importance whatsoever, you can get on a Zoom call and see what you look like on screen, and make sure that all the filters are off. Make sure that your name is correct. Anything that has to be forward is correct. So as far as the Zoom calls, yeah, there's a rule of thumb. It's called the 10-20-30 rule. It's kind of a different thing, but if you're doing a Zoom call, it's the same as in person, as I say. You want to have 10 slides. You want to have 20-point type, so it's easy to see, and you want to speak for no more than 30 minutes. This way, you're getting a message across, and it's not a lecture. If it takes you 60 slides and 2 hours, you're just not going to get more understanding out of more time. People turn off after a while. So you want to get to your point fast, engage as many people as possible, and be able to have a conversation about it.
And people forget that the PowerPoint isn't the presentation. You are the presentation. The PowerPoint is an aid. And to hammer this home, go on YouTube and look at a Steve Jobs presentation and look at what he has on his slides. You'll see very few words. You'll see pictures, but he is the presentation, and see how engaging he is with his presentations. And he's not using filters or virtual backgrounds either. Okay, we're down to number one. What could it be?
Number one, plan.
What I'm looking at is Scott Douglas Green's case number 20 TRO 95795. I believe Officer Monroe is present on this case as well. So unless I'm mistaken, I'm seeing a defendant that's in the middle of an operating room, appearing to be actively engaged in providing services to a patient. Is that correct, Mr. Green?
Yes, sir.
Or should I say Dr. Green, but I don't know that.
Okay, that's okay.
I do not feel comfortable for the welfare of a patient if you're in the process of operating that I would put on a trial, notwithstanding the fact that the officer's here today.
So I have another surgeon right here who's doing the surgery with me, so I can stand here and allow them to do the surgery also.
Not at all. I don't think so. I don't think that's appropriate. I think I'm going to come up with a different date when you're not actively involved or participating in attending to the needs of the patient.
Yeah. All right. So, what was more important there, the surgery or the Zoom call? Gary.
Well, I would say that, again, that alludes to people in all kinds of environments, and driving, walking. It's not appropriate for everyone to be in a business call, no matter where they are. You should be in a place that is not distracting to the people you're talking to. If you're going to be there at all, you should be there 100% and not partially there. So unless you could be there, I know a lot of people will mute and shut off their cameras and feel like they're just listening on the side. In some cases, if you're listening to a webinar and you want to do something else, that's fine. But if you are an active participant in a call and there is actions that must be taken, you shouldn't be distracted by surroundings that are not conducive to being 100% focused on that. If you're driving, how much focus can you put on the call of what's at hand? So yeah, that's another example of that. You control your environment and be focused on the point at hand.
Henry?
Yeah, same. Basically, I want to say the same attention that you would pay to your in-person meeting should be paid to your Zoom meeting. You don't want to waste time. You want to have an agenda, and you want to basically respect folks, just like Gary was saying earlier. Show them some respect by not wasting their time.
Yeah, I have a weekly meeting, and usually the meeting runs for 30 minutes. But sometimes when there's one participant who joins the meetings are an hour and a half, because they're more like idea sessions where they're being thrown around. And what kills me on these calls that sometimes it's not my department. So they're spending, 45 minutes on something for accounting or something else, and I'm trying to show interest, and I'm having a real hard time. So make sure it's a balanced meeting, that people who are there, are there for a reading, just like a meeting in person. You don't want to have that, person, snoozing away there, or some person who could be doing something else as opposed to being at that meeting. Also want to stress, rehearse. If you're going to do a meeting, there is so much that can go wrong. And I'm sure you guys know this and can tell stories about getting on a call where everything has gone wrong. I had one recently where the host couldn't get on, and we had to play the PowerPoint from somebody else, and we had them talking about their PowerPoint through their phone held up to my microphone. So we did it though. We had people from all over the country on this call, and we accomplished it, and it wasn't terrible, but we probably would have been a bit better if we were all on 15 minutes in advance. And I learned from that, you learn from your mistakes, that you got to do that. You got to test your PowerPoint. You got to make sure your PowerPoint, works on that, and that it's legible too. There was a point of that we should have brought up earlier, and this was a good one. I learned something from Gary while we were talking about doing this presentation. Is usually when you're doing a Zoom call, you have the Brady Bunch in front of you. You have a whole bunch of pictures of people, and you start looking, in the corners at the people while they're talking, and it looks kind of weird, like you're not paying attention. And I think, Gary, you mentioned that there's a guy that who has a camera off to the side, so you just see the side of his head, which is distracting. So, Gary, you know what tip I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, it's look at the camera, and if it's hard to train yourself to look at the camera, but when you do, you're actually speaking to everyone at the same time. So I've heard of turning your camera off, or minimizing it so that you don't see it. In some programs, that's easier to do. But certainly, if you put the tip I heard was put a Post-it with a smiley face above the camera, so that you're looking at the camera or looking at that smiley face, and it feels like you're actually speaking directly to people versus looking at the keyboard or looking in different weird angles.
All right. So on number one on plan, anything left to talk about as far as the top 10 of Zoom meetings? Did we miss anything?
I don't think so.
I would say just one thing. There's something called Zoom fatigue, and I would argue that probably every call doesn't have to be a Zoom call. And once in a while, it's like everything doesn't require a meeting before Zoom. So there's ways to actually think twice about always having a Zoom call.
Yeah, I notice these days people go from one call to the next call to the next, and that's just their whole day on this. And luckily, that's I don't do that very often, but I could see how that can wipe you out. And they're saying like people are having problems after spending a whole day on Zoom, and then they get in their car and drive, and they're not driving very well. So yeah, I was hearing Zoom fatigue as a police thing. All right, fellas, we made it. But you're not going to go away empty-handed for joining us on this meeting here. If there's anything that you'd like, any information on anybody, just remember my email address there. I'm the first one there. I'm Jeff Schick at sprite-media.com. And since you made it all the way to the end, if you would like a free 30-minute website or SEO consultation or anything to do with small business web services, contact me through email and we have a code there, QWeb0421. And I'd be happy to meet with you, especially the Queens Chamber of Commerce folks, or people wanting to be part of that, or just people in the community. And Gary, we have a note for you about this Remo conferencing app. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Actually, I just put in a website in the chat. It's ibdpros.org. It's the International Business Development Professionals. We use a Remo platform, which is a different than Zoom. It allows for a different type of networking and interactions. But the organization is about people that are interested in business development, and it's a community of people that help each other. Definitely worth the look.
And Henry, you were good enough to put together a list of recommended items. Yet again, there is no payoff for any of us on this. Just trying to help the community there. And you'll see at the bottom there, it's https:/westchesterlivevideo.com/webcam tips.
Yeah, I actually put that link in the chat as well. Just some equipment suggestions for some mics, some lights, the webcam that I mentioned earlier. There's just links on that site if you just want to take a look. And you know, our contact info if anybody's got some extra tech questions they need help with.
I'd like to thank also our announcer, Langdon Town, for joining in on the fun. Yet again, I want to thank Gary and Henry for being there. And I want to see some really great Zoom calls coming out of folks through the Queen's Chamber and elsewhere. And thanks for stopping by, everybody.
Thanks for coming, and drive home safely.
Thanks, everybody.